Welcome back to the Dinar Daily, where we're shifting the conversation from speculation to what appears to be a phase of tangible progress. For a long time, those who followed the Iraqi dinar, IQD, and the Vietnamese dong, VND, had been navigating a landscape filled with hopeful rumors, unverified claims, and countless theories about a potential currency revaluation. This journey has often felt like an endless cycle of anticipation and, at times, disappointment, leaving many to wonder if any significant movement would ever truly materialize. However, there's a distinct change in the atmosphere today, and it feels different for a very important reason. The current information suggests that a significant event might be unfolding behind the scenes, and for those who have been following these developments, this could be a crucial moment to pay attention. The shift is significant because the source and context of the circulating information are different from what we've seen in the past. Historically, much of the news has been driven by online chatter, hearsay, and exaggerated claims lacking credible confirmation. In contrast, the current wave of reports seems to be tied to concrete activities within major banking networks. This is a profound change. It moves the discussion from being purely theoretical to being practical, suggesting that years of speculation may now be giving way to real-world financial movements. This is why many longtime holders of these currencies are feeling a new sense of anticipation, the kind they've been waiting years, even decades, to feel. To truly appreciate the importance of this moment, it's helpful to look back at the history of revaluation speculation. The idea of a currency reset for the Iraqi dinar has been a topic of discussion since the early 2000s. After Iraq's economic and political landscape changed dramatically, veterans, international contractors, and speculators began acquiring the currency with the hope that Iraq's economy, fueled by its immense oil wealth, would recover and that its devalued currency would eventually strengthen to reflect this new stability and its integration into the global financial system. A similar narrative has accompanied the Vietnamese dong, with observers pointing to Vietnam's rapid industrial growth and modernizing trade relationships as a sign that its currency was also poised for significant appreciation. Despite the enthusiasm, years passed with little official movement, causing many to question if the idea of a major revaluation was simply a long-held dream. Banks, financial analysts, and regulators often dismissed the online discussions as unrealistic, which made it incredibly difficult to find solid, verifiable information. What makes the present situation unique is that it's not just a rehashing of old promises. Instead, there are now suggestions that actual, verified transactions are taking place quietly and within highly controlled channels. Even more noteworthy, these reports involve some of the largest and most respected institutions in international banking, a major departure from the speculative conversations of the past that lacked this kind of institutional backing. The institution now at the heart of this evolving conversation is HSBC, a global banking powerhouse headquartered in London with a vast network spanning Asia, the Middle East, Europe, and the Americas. Unlike smaller banks or informal currency dealers mentioned in earlier rumors, HSBC carries a reputation that is nearly impossible to ignore. The reports suggest that HSBC has started to facilitate exchanges of Iraqi dinar and Vietnamese dong, but not in the traditional way. These are not transactions that you can walk into a local branch and request. Instead, they are allegedly being conducted through private, invitation-only channels, accessible only to those with pre-existing relationships within high finance or with significant wealth management portfolios. For years, a central criticism of revaluation rumors was the complete absence of credible institutional involvement. Now, if these reports about HSBC's activity are accurate, the entire narrative shifts dramatically. It raises important questions. Why would a bank of this stature and prestige engage in such a process? Why would they limit these transactions to private arrangements instead of opening the opportunity to the public? Most importantly, what does this activity suggest about the future for ordinary holders of these currencies? The nature of these transactions, with their limited access and strict controls, is what truly sets this development apart from anything we've heard before, hinting at a structured, methodical process rather than a sudden, public event. The unique detail that distinguishes this development is how these exchanges are reportedly being handled. According to information circulating through financial channels, the transactions are not being conducted openly for the general public. Instead, they are taking place under a highly restricted, invitation-only system. This implies that the current movement is not yet intended for the wider market but is being tested, managed, and controlled to limit exposure and ensure security. This approach is consistent with how major banking institutions often handle sensitive financial transitions. They may engage in pilot programs with a select group of clients to observe the mechanics, troubleshoot potential issues, and manage risks before a full-scale public rollout. For currency holders, this means that while a large-scale public revaluation may not have been announced, there is mounting evidence that something is happening in the background. The secrecy surrounding these activities, far from being a sign of deception, may instead point to the seriousness with which these institutions are approaching the matter. Quiet, controlled exchanges are a hallmark of preparation rather than speculation, suggesting that developments are moving forward in a structured and methodical way. For those who have waited patiently for this moment, this could be the clearest signal yet that the long-anticipated moment is closer than it has ever been. Transitioning from a theoretical possibility to a practical reality, insiders now claim that high-net-worth clients, those who already have substantial financial portfolios and long-standing ties with global institutions, are being quietly ushered into private meetings with HSBC's Wealth Management Division. These are not casual consultations or exploratory conversations. They are reportedly highly orchestrated sessions where actual exchanges are taking place at rates that would have been unthinkable just a short time ago. The scale of these transactions is said to be significant, involving millions in currency holdings, and the rates being offered are nothing like the numbers typically seen on standard foreign exchange tickers. This suggests that a managed revaluation process is being tested. Sources are now confirming that HSBC is extending rates of approximately $6.88 per Iraqi Dinar and $3.70 per Vietnamese Dong. These values, if accurate, represent a seismic departure from the fractional pricing that has dominated the forex landscape for years. Such figures, when multiplied across large holdings, could represent a life-changing level of wealth for those positioned correctly. It's no surprise that the financial community is buzzing quietly, with whispers spreading through networks of investors, attorneys, and advisors who recognize the potential implications of what may now be unfolding. The sheer boldness of offering institutional rates behind closed doors points to an operation of significant intent and sophistication, indicating this is far more than just another rumor. What makes these sessions even more compelling is the reported level of structure and detail governing the process. These are not informal or loosely monitored exchanges. According to multiple accounts, the operations are tightly choreographed to comply with every applicable regulation. Only clients with verifiable, substantial holdings are invited, and these invitations are extended through private banking channels, not advertised publicly. Once a client arrives, the setting is highly secure, often taking place in private rooms reserved for wealth management. Attorneys and compliance officers are frequently present to ensure every detail is documented and legally defensible, a stark contrast to past unverified claims. The currency notes themselves are reportedly subjected to rigorous checks, including ultraviolet verification to confirm authenticity and screening against anti-money laundering (AML) protocols. Clients must also present original purchase receipts or a notarized affidavit to demonstrate that their holdings were legally acquired. Even after approval, the funds are not handed over immediately. Instead, they are routed into escrow or specialized processing accounts, where they remain for 24 to 72 hours while the bank finalizes compliance reviews and liquidity confirmations. This multi-layered approach indicates a seriousness of intent, suggesting that HSBC is not only safeguarding itself legally but also building a prototype process that could one day serve as the template for wider public rollouts should such revaluation activity expand beyond this private tier. The most common question that arises from these reports is simple yet critical. If this is truly happening, Why isn't it being broadcast on mainstream financial outlets like CNN, Bloomberg, or the Wall Street Journal? The answer, according to insiders, lies in the very nature of the operation. What we are seeing is not a public event but a pre-market institutional phase, an insider-only window where systems are tested behind the scenes before public disclosure. This type of phase is not unprecedented in financial history. Large banks often trial new instruments, liquidity flows, and compliance mechanisms quietly before unveiling them to the broader marketplace. The intent is not secrecy for its own sake, but risk management, ensuring the infrastructure is ready to handle a surge in demand and scrutiny. By confining these exchanges to a select group of clients, Tier 1 institutions such as HSBC can confirm that fraud protections are effective, liquidity pipelines function smoothly, and international settlements can be executed without disruption. At the same time, these processes provide an early reward to those clients who are already embedded in private banking networks, effectively offering them a first-mover advantage. This quiet rollout ensures that if and when a broader revaluation hits public forex markets, the infrastructure will be ready. For those outside the wealth management circle, the silence of mainstream media may feel like evidence of inaction, but for those observing closely, it's more likely evidence that something is being carefully engineered just out of view. The fact that HSBC appears to be at the center of this process is a signal that cannot be ignored. This is not a regional bank experimenting with a niche product or a speculative currency dealer making exaggerated claims. HSBC is one of the most entrenched institutions in global finance, with connections that reach into the very core of international systems. Its deep relationships with the International Monetary Fund, IMF, the World Bank, and the SWIFT Global Settlement Network give it a unique position to act as a gatekeeper for large-scale financial transitions. When reports suggest that these revaluation-linked exchanges are occurring not only in the United States but also in key hubs like London and Hong Kong, it adds an additional layer of credibility. These cities are not chosen at random. They're global financial capitals where HSBC operates elite wealth management divisions and where regulatory oversight is among the strictest in the world. If activity is occurring there, it implies coordination at a level far beyond local experimentation. For observers, this means the narrative is shifting away from unverified chatter toward indications of a structured, internationally connected operation. Such involvement strongly suggests that the process, whatever its exact timeline, is designed with eventual scalability in mind. A bank with this level of infrastructure and global integration does not engage in isolated experiments. It engages in systems that have the potential to ripple outward across markets, creating a broad and lasting impact. For everyday holders of Iraqi dinar or Vietnamese dong, the most important lesson from these reports is that this is not the end of the story, but rather a critical phase leading towards something larger. Historically, public access to financial shifts often follows a controlled institutional testing period. Once systems have been proven to work at scale, preparation becomes essential. Holders should take proactive steps now to ensure their positions are ready should opportunities expand. The first and most practical action is to safeguard the physical condition of the notes. Banks will not risk exchanging damaged, defaced, or questionable currency. Notes should be kept clean, organized, and protected from moisture, folds, or other forms of deterioration, as their physical condition is a key factor in the verification process. Beyond that, documentation is vital. Receipts from licensed dealers should be located and organized so they can be presented quickly and without confusion. For those who purchased notes long ago or through intermediaries, a notarized affidavit attesting to the purchase history can serve as a substitute, provided it is prepared carefully and truthfully. These steps may sound procedural, but they are critical because banks will not tolerate risk in their compliance processes. A client who arrives well prepared will stand apart from those who are disorganized or careless. This preparation not only improves the likelihood of being accepted for an exchange when the opportunity arises, but also signals professionalism to the institutions involved, which may influence how one is treated during sensitive consultations. When The time does come to approach financial institutions. Presentation and professionalism will matter greatly. Walking into a branch and casually asking about exchanging Iraqi dinar or Vietnamese dong is not only ineffective but could also work against you by raising unnecessary red flags with frontline employees who are not authorized to discuss such matters. Instead, the smarter strategy is to frame the conversation around international wealth planning, foreign asset management, or legacy portfolio structuring. These are the entry points that wealth management divisions understand and respond to. By positioning yourself as someone with a broader financial vision, you are more likely to be referred to the correct teams, who can handle such discussions in the appropriate private setting. Remember that these exchanges, if and when they become available, will not be publicized on billboards or announced through customer service hotlines. They will take place in discreet, controlled environments where tact and discretion are expected. Clients who demonstrate patience, professionalism, and the ability to engage with financial advisors on their terms are far more likely to be taken seriously. This is not just about gaining access. It is about respecting the sensitivity of the process and recognizing that a global revaluation, if it is indeed underway, is a matter of high-level financial diplomacy. A respectful approach could be the difference between being invited forward and being quietly declined, making your preparation and presentation paramount. At the same time, it is vital to remain cautious because moments like this inevitably attract bad actors and opportunists. Scammers thrive on uncertainty and hope, and whenever whispers of currency reevaluation spread, fraudulent offers tend to multiply. The principles of protection are straightforward but must be emphasized. Never pay upfront fees to anyone claiming they can guarantee you an exchange appointment. Real banks do not operate in that fashion. Likewise, never send your currency through the mail to someone promising processing services. No matter how convincing their story or how official their materials may look, any legitimate exchange will occur face-to-face in a secured, documented setting under the oversight of licensed institutions, with all necessary paperwork in place. Similarly, never respond to unsolicited messages on Telegram, email, or social media offering so-called backdoor access to exchange programs. These tactics are designed to prey on hope and impatience, often leaving victims financially and emotionally devastated. If HSBC or any other Tier 1 bank is conducting exchanges, they are doing so under strict compliance guidelines, not through shadowy intermediaries. All legitimate interactions will be direct, verified, and conducted within established legal frameworks. Protect yourself by practicing patience, skepticism, and discipline. In the end, if the process is real and moving toward public access, there will be opportunities for compliant, well-prepared holders to participate. Falling prey to scams will only jeopardize your position and diminish the years of patience that have already been invested. This shift also makes sense when viewed within a much larger global context, one that extends far beyond the walls of HSBC's private wealth offices. Iraq, for example, has recently begun signing oil contracts denominated directly in dinar rather than defaulting to the traditional petrodollar framework. That decision alone marks a seismic break from decades of precedent, where nearly all global energy transactions were conducted in US dollars. By pricing oil in dinar, Iraq is not only boosting demand for its national currency, but also positioning itself as a challenger to a system that has shaped world finance for nearly half a century. This is a systemic change, not just a rumor. At the same time, Vietnam has been steadily modernizing its financial architecture by implementing ISO 2022 banking standards, a critical step that integrates its domestic systems with the most advanced global settlement networks. This adoption signals to international partners that Vietnam is aligning itself with best practices, increasing transparency, and improving interoperability with global banks. Both countries are also engaging in IMF-supported reforms designed to reduce corruption, improve governance, and push national currencies toward fair market values that are tied more closely to tangible assets than to political maneuvering. When placed together, these moves create a compelling picture: two emerging economies, simultaneously fortifying their monetary systems and aligning themselves with global reform agendas. As with any potential gain, there are corresponding obligations, particularly in the realm of taxation and compliance. Investors should be aware that profits from any revaluation-based exchange will not be exempt from oversight. Depending on your jurisdiction, proceeds may be categorized as income, capital gains, or even a combination of both. This is why it is absolutely essential to consult a qualified certified public accountant, CPA, or tax attorney who has direct experience with foreign currency issues and cross-border wealth strategy. Attempting to navigate this complexity alone could expose you to unnecessary risk, including audits, penalties, or overpayment of taxes. Ignoring this reality could undermine years of patience and preparation, so it is a critical step to take now. Beyond the basics of compliance, serious investors should also be considering wealth preservation strategies in advance. Options may include the use of trusts for asset protection, structured entities that create tax efficiency, or even staged exchanges designed to spread taxable events across multiple years. By preparing now, you not only reduce exposure, but also increase the likelihood of retaining more of your gains. Governments will expect their share, and banks will report major transactions. The opportunity is historic, but it will only benefit those who balance optimism with prudence, recognizing that true financial success is measured not just by gross gains, but by what remains preserved and protected after all obligations are met. Investors should also temper their expectations with a practical awareness of how the rollout to the public might unfold. Even if institutional testing confirms that revaluation is underway, banks are unlikely to allow an unlimited open-door exchange process from day one. Instead, limits will almost certainly be imposed, whether in the form of daily or transactional caps. This means that individuals holding large quantities of dinar or dong may need to schedule multiple appointments, spread their exchanges across weeks or months, or coordinate with different branches or financial institutions. Liquidity management is not only a technical necessity but also a matter of systemic stability. No bank wants to overwhelm its operations or deplete its reserves overnight. For holders, this translates into a call for patience and strategy. Rushing to exchange everything at once may not even be possible, and waiting for subsequent waves of exchanges could prove more profitable depending on market adjustments. The encouraging part is clear. Once HSBC takes visible steps, other Tier 1 banks are highly likely to follow, creating broader access and spreading confidence. With each additional bank entering the process, liquidity expands, infrastructure strengthens, and confirmation spreads rapidly. In other words, patience will not just be necessary, it will be rewarded. Those who approach the process calmly, methodically, and with foresight will almost certainly find themselves better positioned than those who act rashly at the first opportunity. So, it's a good idea to have a plan in place. This moment represents the culmination of what many investors have been waiting for through years of speculation, denials, and conflicting narratives. What once seemed like an endless cycle of rumor and disappointment is now showing the contours of structured execution. The reports tied to HSBC, combined with the broader economic reforms underway in Iraq and Vietnam, suggest that this is no longer a matter of if, but a matter of when. The critical distinction for holders is readiness. Preparation is what separates those who will succeed from those who will watch opportunities pass by in frustration. If this update has provided clarity, we encourage you to engage actively with the community. The choice is stark but empowering. Preparation beats panic every single time. Stay focused, stay calm, and recognize that historic change never arrives with a trumpet blast. It arrives in measured steps through controlled execution until suddenly what was whispered in private becomes undeniable in public. When that moment arrives, your readiness will determine your outcome. This period of quiet, deliberate action is a sign that the finish line is no longer distant, but is beginning to take shape. For those who have been waiting patiently and preparing diligently, this could represent the single most important financial shift of their lifetimes.